All right, we're live. SoccerChronicle.com presents the podcast that has more grit and class than the U.S. men's national team.
Oh my god.
Los Cachirules. Let's get it on.
This should have been held up to a boat.
Nobody provided any intro recommendations. So,
Right.
going by the topics at hand. LigaMX.
All right, LigaMX as well. Basically, we got four match days left. No one's eliminated. There's right now 5 teams that are tied that have 17 points, and basically those 5 teams are Monterrey, Chiapas, Guadalajara, Morelia, and Atlas. So I mean, it's basically the mid-table right now is going to be hard fought. Honestly, right now there's 4 teams that probably have the best momentum going, winding down, which is Pumas, América, Tigres, and Toluca. So I see UNAM and I see Tigres and I see América finish strong. Cardoso, for some reason, his teams, they just tend to... I think he's a good coach, but I just think that the last couple of seasons, he just hasn't finished that strong.
Speaking as a Pumas fan, I personally would prefer that Pumas end second or third in the table, because if they end number 1, that's like the death sentence for a team to go into the Liguilla, because they always lose.
It's the curse, man.
That doesn't make sense, though.
Well, that's just how it is. It's unfortunate. I mean, the last time they won it, they were, up until that last week, the number 1 team, and then they lost to Tigres. Tigres ended up being the super leader, and then they got knocked out by Indios, I think it was, in the first round, whatever it was, and so yeah, it's I'm pulling for Pumas to be the number 2 or number 3 team at the end.
Well, keep in mind, America was, when they were super leaders and champions, with Turco, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, I mean, it does happen, but
very rare.
Getting knocked out, is much more common.
Hey,
You know what? If the super leaders were were awarded the championship, I think La Volpe would have more than one for sure. He'd have a handful of them.
That's true. See, that was all devised to go against the...
Yeah. The Liguilla has been around since 1970, so unless if any of y'all are older than 45, then you guys know nothing about the league when they didn't have a Liguilla. So let's not talk about it.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when Cuau was with Veracruz, and they were super leaders, and
and Pumas
they bombed out. They bombed out.
Hey, so how about those Rogelio Funes Mori, man? He obviously costs less than André Gignac or whatever, André Gignac, and they scored the same amount of goals. So guess what? The Rayados staying true to their wallet and saving money and getting more for their buck.
Well, they got to save money. They just spent how much in that stadium? I mean, even then, if you look at their roster, I mean, they have a very, very good team. I mean, player-wise, they've been really uneven so far. And I mean, John mentioned it just a few seconds ago, but yeah, nobody really wants to finish first. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't remember the last team that finished first in league and then went on to win the championship.
Yeah, it was América, as Ronnie said.
Right.
Just recently, but
yeah,
but it happened so rarely.
Exactly, and so even though Pumas has been quietly putting together a very nice, very coherent season, I still don't think they're going to end up taking it, in a month or two when this thing wraps up. I don't see them taking it. It's going to be probably someone's going to sneak up. Santos might just get hot. Maybe what they're doing now. They have a decent team. You look at it and say, I don't know if they're really going to be that good, but it's deceiving. I mean, the league is very competitive, and people like to call it mediocre. I don't think it's mediocre. I think it's very competitive.
It's an awesome
I guess we'll see.
They're in Conca Champions. Santos is too. So I think anyone in Conca Champions is not going to win the league. But we'll see.
But this is the last weekend. This is the last match day of Conca Champions. So they're done after that.
But
go ahead.
But as far as like with Liguilla, you're gonna have Copa MX, which is gonna be Chivas, Toluca, León, and the winner of Atlas in Tijuana. Then for the Conca Chafa, you have America. Who else? What is it? Monterrey, Santos. So that may help out the teams that are in the Liguilla that only have to concentrate just with one tournament.
Yeah, but the thing is that Conca Champions is done. I mean, today's the last day, so there's no Conca Champions again until February or March. So that shouldn't play into it at all.
Oh, I guess my Wikipedia was wrong then.
This is the last week. In fact, Tigres is playing right now, and they have to win. If anyone can get an update on that score, because I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, but Tigres is playing right now, and they have to win in order to advance.
Talking about CONCACHAF, man, that is a trash tournament. The way they set it up, 3 teams per group.
That game's already over, and it finished 0-0.
So does that mean that they advance, or are they?
No, they go through. They go through now. It's depending on whether or not the Galaxy beat Comunicaciones and by how many will determine how the brackets and the knockout rounds will fall.
Now, the team that is going to have an issue with the Liguilla is going to be America, because they have to go to Japan to play the Club World Cup.
That's a good point. I still don't think America is going to take it this year. Something about them, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. And
Ambris.
No, it's not really the coach. It's just.
Does it have a flat top?
They weren't impressive in their game yesterday.
But they didn't have to be. I mean,
they don't have to be.
Yeah, I mean they were going to win their group whether they won one loss or draw. It was a trámite. That's all it was.
Well, even in league though, like Sambresa hasn't been impressive. It seems difficult.
And he's the captain of the team. Like, what? How does anybody reason with that?
He's had some disciplinary problems this season.
Some.
Yeah, some. He's already been thrown out like
he's
2 times. But he, I mean, since he came on board, he has done very well with the team. But as far as like right now, there's 2 teams that are coming off 2 wins, league wins, which is one is Pumas and the other one's America. I'm sorry, and Tigres as well. So that's actually 3 teams. So 3 teams. I mean, right now, like I said, man, towards the end of the season, it's all about momentum. So the teams that have it, they tend to take it. And right now, with you can't go wrong with teams that are basically building on wins right now. But I honestly, I mean, speaking as a fan of America, I wouldn't be heartbroken if they didn't win the league, because quite frankly, I want them to. I don't want them to win. I don't want them to get the title. I kind of want them to start fighting for the Libertadores. I don't really want the team participating in the CONCACHAF anymore.
I mean, when you talk about form, I mean, I guess the most informed team has to be Toluca. They haven't lost in 6 games, 7 games. A team like that could potentially make a deep run, but I'm just going to go on a flyer here and say that I think that if Chivas makes it to the playoffs, I think they're a team that could potentially go all the way. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Well, if they make it to the playoffs, then that'll mean that they've been playing really well, because they have to. As Ronnie mentioned at the beginning, there's a big clump of teams in the mid-table that are fighting for those last spots.
Yeah,
and it's usually those teams that go from from 10th to 5th in 3 weeks because they've won.
Right, they pick up that momentum. I mean, Chivas
are really
right now
dangerous.
They're literally there's a for 8th place, there's like a 4 or 5 team tie, but they're like 2 points away, 3 points away from Veracruz and Puebla. So I mean, it's doable. I think they've played really. I think that the last 2 or so games they haven't gotten the results that they wanted, but I do feel like there's been a progression for them. They've been very aggressive, and I feel like the loss of Chaton Enriquez has really kind of hindered the team because he was starting to provide balance in the midfield, and with him out, now Almeida's resorting to using Salcido and more of Castro, which is a really, really weird thing to see because one of the two is fine, but to use those 2 guys as your central midfielders, it kind of goes against what he's trying to do with these fast wingers and getting into the opponent's half and being more proactive. It just seems kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 back in that sense. But I see them as a team that feels like has a lot to prove. So I'd see them if they do manage to make it, I think they could cause some damage.
You know, Chaton is the type of player that gets injured every time it rains in Guadalajara. So I think it's time.
Unfortunately for him, yeah, it's true.
It really sucks. I mean, I had high hopes for that guy. I thought that he was going to be on the national team for 10 years. End up being the captain. He's just, he's that kind of leader, that kind of player. But man, it's just, learn how to eat, dude. Because it's all muscular. It's like these guys. It's like, don't they understand that this is what their job is? It's like this is how they earn their money. You got to take care of their bodies. They got to take care of their bodies.
Fast women, slow horses.
Well, there's other dudes that are skinny just like him. Diego Reyes. There's a ton of dudes that are skinny.
I mean,
it's just probably some weak bones or something.
I feel like that's just the way that they're built, At least with Enriquez, on the national team, it's luckily for us, we've had guys that have sort of come out of nowhere, like Aguito Vasquez and more recently Javier Güemes. But we can't really be counting on dudes coming out of nowhere to fill up these spots. I feel like Enriquez would definitely benefit from a change of scenery. At least under Almeida, he's had some pretty good games and sort of picked up his form before he got injured. But I do feel like he would fit in much better at a team like Santos or I don't know, even Toluca, for example. Like I think he's a better player than Antonio Rios, a guy who has been on the national team, especially the last few tournaments with Piojo Herrera. I don't know. I mean, he's Chaton for my money. I mean, we need a player like him that can compete physically and sort of do his job and do it well. Get the ball back and just pass it on to the other guys that are going to do something with it. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think that for Chivas, I think he's a big loss, and if they can get him back, I can see them doing something pretty decent in the playoffs.
What's his name? Luis Perez just came back from Guadalajara, and he basically, they turned him into trash, so now they send him back to Monterrey. So I think Chaton going to Monterrey, actually, I would think it would be a good thing for him, actually.
That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. I mean, I don't know if he'll want to leave Guadalajara. He's been there with the club for a long time, but he's 25 years old, 24 years old. I mean, he could still play a part in this cycle for the national team, but, I mean, it's up to him. We'll see.
I see a future in clowns.
His passing range seemed to improve under Almeida. That old joke about Chaton, there was a cartoon, they said, le dan balones, regresa melones.
Sí, sandías, pero bueno. Sí. O sea,
do you know where that came about or how that came about?
Wasn't that Hugo Sanchez that said that when he came back from Europe or something?
No. The Brazilian player Dercel.
That's right.
Dercel, he went to go play for America, and basically, he meant it as an insult that they. I give sweet passes, and they basically give me these huge, watermelons,
Damn, that's kind of racist.
What's that? No. He was just talking. He was in reference to the lower quality of the
quality of the pass, how easy it was to control it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Get a ball that pops up in the air when it could have been easier to pass it on the ground. Yeah, it makes sense.
No, I get that. Yeah.
So Chivas is your surprise team then.
I
My
think if they
surprise
make
team is, my mind is Puebla, man. I like the way Puebla plays.
You guys don't think Querétaro will make it in the Liga again?
He likes his choriceros.
No, that's Toluca. No, Puebla is they just
Camoteros.
Camotes.
Quiere sus camotes.
That's right. His camotes.
So, anybody else have any surprise teams?
I don't know. I think Querétaro can sneak into the Liguilla.
Who you got?
Look at Villa, man. He has like what, 11 goals?
He's a leader in the league, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that kid Pineda Orbelin. He's got it going on. Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah. I'm not sure why he didn't play, or I don't know. He may have been too old, but for the Olympic team, I thought that.
No, he fits the age. I think Querétaro just didn't release him for the tournament.
Well,
but even then, I mean, he's a very similar player to Carlos Fierro. So I mean, people talked about players that weren't released for the tournament, but Pineda has at least a brighter future compared to Carlos Fierro, who in my opinion is sort of topped out.
Yep.
And I know some people will disagree with that, especially some Chivas fans. We've had some encounters regarding this subject on the forums, but I mean, now I think yesterday in the Copa MX game, or at least the last few games, he's been playing sort of as a wing back, kind of fullback role, which he's Fierro, and it hasn't been bad. I mean, he hasn't been bad, but I mean, offensively speaking, I think Orbelin Pineda has a couple more tricks up his sleeve, so to speak. I mean, I think against Toluca on Sunday, I think he bag a brace. He scored 2 goals.
Yeah, but
I think he scored the 2 goals for Querétaro, and they were really scrappy. I mean, he's a small dude, but he's scrappy and he gets in there. And I mean, at least at the U17 World Cup this past summer, he was one of the brighter players that we had. I mean, with that said, I don't think Querétaro is going to come anywhere near the playoffs. They're just an underwhelming team. I don't know. I think Vucetich is going to have to get some reinforcements. There are some good players on the team, but overall, it's just like very lackluster. Overall, I don't see them making the playoffs at all.
What do you think about that?
Well, do you think all the Gallos fans that are listening just stop? They're done. They don't want to hear it.
You're gonna break Ronaldinho's heart.
Hey, Ronaldinho plans to come back, I heard.
Yeah, and he says only to Gallos Blancos.
Yeah.
He loves those discos.
Well, he says that. Well, I hear the nightlife in Querétaro is very, very good, so I can see why you'd want to come back.
It's a cool little town, Querétaro. It's a great spot, too. It's like right between Guadalajara, Mexico City. It's
one of the more affluent.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of,
especially up and coming. I think I hear my dad was telling me because he still lives in Mexico. He's saying that there's a big sort of tech boom going on in Querétaro.
Right.
So that's bound to bring in some sponsors for the team. Maybe they can invest in some players. The team as a whole, I don't know. There's
got
a
a nice
couple
stadium
players there, but I don't know.
They got one of the nicer stadiums in the league too. I like it quite a bit.
I think they put some work into it. I think the U17 World Cup in 2011 had some games there. So
that's where Butragueño scored 4 goals in the '86 World Cup.
Yeah.
Poor Denmark.
Querétaro, to me, as a football, as a soccer city, has always been kind of like an enigma because, I mean, this is a city that at one point had 3 teams in the first division. They had the Gallos Blancos, they had the Campesinos, but for some reason they could never get a team going. I honestly think that Querétaro is going to be the new Pachuca because I mean the new owners, I mean they have deep pockets.
Yeah, they spend a lot of money, that's for sure.
So I mean I honestly think that they're going to be a team that you're going to start seeing a lot of in the future.
And that's what Grupo Imagen, is that the name of that one?
They're basically, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's like a family member or a prestanombre, if you will, of the people that own what is it, the OEM, basically all a lot of the newspapers and stuff like that. So I mean they got a lot of money, so they're going to be around.
So they're not the secret owners like they were.
No, the league, the Mexican league, you're not going to see the Cermeño type, like the like the disco type owners and like the Carlos Omada. Those days are gone, man. The LigaMX owners, man, it's just a billionaires club now.
Except for Puebla. Right. No, Puebla is like the anomaly there.
No.
Well, I mean, Record just ran a story tonight saying that the Puebla players have not been paid and they are considering boycott. It's sort of when people were talking about Puebla being maybe a candidate for the playoffs, this could be something that could distract them, from the last few games of the season. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean Puebla, and I still think that the owners from Tijuana, I think I think they're shady. Obviously, a lot of people probably read, the Ron family, but yeah, you're right about Puebla. I mean, Puebla, they just, I mean, from what they sent an owner to jail a couple of years back, Bernat, what was it, Bernat, I believe.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I think Querétaro, they're going to be around for some good years.
Yeah, and like you said, because of the fact that that it's kind of like a little boom town and it's got a lot of money. I mean, LigaMX, when La Piedad came in the league a few years ago, they're like, there's no way. The owner's like, well, I'm going to go to, and they had that shuffle where one went to Veracruz and San Luis went to Querétaro, and they just, they want to make sure that they have a presence in some of these towns. That's why I'm so surprised that Atlanta is still in the second division because, Cancun is an up-and-coming place too, outside of the tourist zone, and it's a shame that they don't have a presence down in that part of the country because that's another area that's done real well, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Honestly,
go ahead.
I don't think Atlanta and Necaxa are ever going to be the teams that they were before.
Well, sure. I mean, I agree with you there, but I mean, the baseball team moved down there. Tigres moved down to, I don't know if it's Cancun specifically, but I know they went down to that part of they seem to have done really well, and it just wouldn't surprise me at all if, whichever team comes up next, if it's like the team from Nayarit, they go, you know what, we're just gonna sell the team and go to Cancun, and then Atlanta becomes the new, what is it, Coras, the Tepic, or whatever it is. It just wouldn't surprise me at all.
The former Chivas franchise.
Matt,
yeah, exactly.
We're talking about Atlanta, talking about Necaxa. Those are two teams that obviously, that they were owned by Televisa.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I mean, to the Mexican press, that's like a big no-no. Even though there's never been any hint of corruption, because I mean, you can cry it all day. You can scream and say, hey, it's bad, but no. There's never been a proof of any wrong.
Rodney, there was that one season when America took all of Necaxa's starting squad. I'll say aside from that, I agree with you.
But or San Luis ends up with like some petardos de America.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
No, but overall, Ronnie's right. Overall, they were managing the teams really good.
Yeah, I mean, remember Necaxa was the last dynasty, honestly.
I mean,
yes, they were.
And it's funny because they're always talking about the corruption of the multi-ownership. Well, I don't think that the Mexican League. I don't think at that time it had 18 or even 20 individual owners that could manage and administer a first division side. And I still don't think, because I mean honestly, what is it? We're in year 3 of in 2 years? What is it? Salinas and Slim are supposed to let go of another team, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Right.
Honestly, I think they should. I think if they let go of Atlas, I think Atlas is going to be, or Morelia, I think Morelia is going to be in trouble.
Oh yeah, I mean Morelia is already sort of sinking as it is. We talk about middling teams, and Morelia is just. They made the final. What was it? It was against Pumas, no? Not, I mean,
Yeah, in 2011.
Right. And I remember watching that game, and it was. I don't even know how they made it. It's been nothing but a free fall for them since, and I don't think it's going to get any better.
I mean, the last time they were exciting to watch was actually when Romano was around, because when they went to those two finals back to back, if I'm not mistaken, like in 2003, 2004, something. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Navia and Bofo.
I mean, the thing that stands out to me about those finals was the constant Macadamia. They just kept coming. Jesus. But other than that, they were a fun team to watch. But I mean, I don't think that Salinas should get rid of Morelia, because I think it's only going to hurt the league in the long run. I think they should get rid of that team when you have an able owners group, if you will.
Well, Morelia just got a sub forum in big soccer, so they should definitely step, but they're gonna get relegated soon.
It's gonna be visited by nobody. Let's be honest. I mean,
do you guys think LigaMX will expand, add more teams?
I don't think they need to. I don't think they need to be honest. I mean, Ronnie made a good point about that just a few seconds ago. And I think that's one of the things that this whole LigaMX thing is sort of trying to sort of professionalize themselves in that sense. One of the things was to get rid of the multipropiedad, which the press has really made it out to be more than I think it really is or ever has been. Look, if an ownership group has the means to maintain two teams and make them competitive, I'm not really sure that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, because how is that different from an ownership group that barely has enough money to pay the players and to pay the bills, and the players that they're bringing in as reinforcements are usually just second or third tier foreign players. If an ownership group has the money to maintain two teams, I mean, why not?
I would say one of the things is clubs end up losing their identity. So you see with Atlante, they ended up.
Necaxa too, I guess.
Yeah, and
well, the Necaxa. Well, keep in mind, Necaxa lost its identity not because of Televisa. They lost their identity when the league first started back in 1943. They did not want to pay players. They wanted to remain amateurs. Mm-hmm. So basically, they said, we're not going to participate. So they didn't exist, not even on paper, for like 8-9 years. So when they decided, back in the 50s or so, when there was a anti-Spanish sentiment, and the two Spanish teams from Asturias and España, when they left the team, they left the league. They invited Necaxa back, but by that point their fan base was gone, and ever since then they've always been trying to get their fan base. They even changed their name to Atlético Español. Mm-hmm. Nothing. So, and also with Atlante, it wasn't because of Televisa. Necaxa, they were owned by a club, but then if I'm not mistaken, it was like the Mexican Social Security administration. They basically owned them for a while.
No, that was Atlante.
That's what I'm saying, Atlante. I mean, it was they were owned by them. So, and then the government started bouncing checks, and all hell went.
So where did they lose their identity again?
Where? Well, just bad ownership. I mean, they went through different ownerships. Atlante. But it was never because of Televisa per se. I mean, they lost it because Atlante at one point had how many times have they been relegated? 4 times now?
No, I'm not blaming Televisa for like Necaxa. In the 90s, I think they were doing that with the team.
Yeah, they had a resurgence in the 90s. I remember
the FIFA
they used
Club
to play
World
on
Cup.
Azteca, yeah.
Yeah, their game
Oh yeah,
against
that's right.
Manchester
2000.
United was really
So-
good.
Hey, Ronnie. So your point is, once the team start losing games, they start losing their identity, their fans.
No, it's when owners don't take the team serious. That's when they start losing the identity. I mean, at least in the case of Necaxa, it was different. That team just didn't exist on paper legally.
Isn't that a, how do you say, motivation to get rid of multipropiedad? Because an organization only can focus on one team, and the other team becomes a feeder team.
But you know what, guys? One thing that we're not saying, it was around that time of and I'm not blaming multipropiedad. I'm saying around that time, Liga MX was trying to expand because it used to be very centralized.
Yeah.
I think they tested the waters with Necaxa and Atlante, and I think that it just ruined the teams to an extent.
Well, that was more of that anti-Televisa sentiment more than anything, because, like I said, I mean, the press can start screaming, corruption all day long, but there comes a point where you're going to have to show proof. And honestly, when have you seen a club owner or a player gone out and say, "Oh yes, they told me to basically lose this game against America or against Necaxa or against Atlante"?
It's never gonna happen, but there is circumstantial, maybe say, evidence. Like I don't know, all of a sudden, para que se salve uno de la liguilla, otro pierde. That's always been rumored here and there in the past, and
That's all it is. It's rumors.
It's rumors.
Yeah,
There's no factual evidence.
I grew up on this whole the referees favor America, and I believe that even without having no clear evidence, and that was just like, it was common knowledge. But then I would look at they went like 13 years without winning
Exactly.
the championship, and it's like, they're helping them. They're not doing it in the right games.
The proof is in the pudding. I mean, you have America with 12 league titles. You have Chivas with 11. You have Toluca with 11. You have Cruz Azul or Toluca. Was it? America has 12. Chivas and Toluca, I think, I have 11. Cruz Azul has 9 or something like that. So I mean, it's not like we're not talking about like Rangers Celtic numbers where two teams or one team has like 20, 30 more titles than the next team. I mean, but the only time that I've read about where there was some shady dealings was actually a game between America and Puebla back in the 1970s when Puebla was winning 3-0, and somehow the game was stopped, and it had to be replayed, and America ended up winning. But I mean, that's the only time. I mean, that's the only proof.
They tried to make one, right, Ronnie, against Morelia.
What's that?
The one incident against Morelia in the final.
In the Liga.
Yes.
Back in the 88 or 89, I don't remember which
It was
one.
it was Tampico Madero.
No. It was Morelia.
Oh.
It was Carlos. If I'm not mistaken, it was Carlos Milok. I think was the coach.
Yeah, El Tanque Milok.
El Tanque. I think he was the coach. If I'm not mistaken. No, yeah, but no. Milok, he's a sensationalist. If you went by the rules,
Oh yeah.
The rules, they left the field, but the thing about it is the penalties had to be taken, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember that they did the refs did follow the rules, but it was just Milok being Milok, But that pretty much covers Liga MX, Copa MX. There's not really much to talk about other than Cruz Azul, La Cruz Azul.
So
I mean,
we gonna go Conca Champions now?
Conca Champions.
Well, I'll tell you what. I watched the American game yesterday, and this dude Michael Arroyo pulled like a chicharito 1 or 2 times, on some easy finishes. So they went down 1 in Honduras against Herediano. No, Motagua, yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
but again,
they came back and scored, so they tied it.
But the game didn't matter. I mean, honestly, they were going to win the group. It was, it was just a formality that they had to play. It was procedural that they had to play the game. But the team that really needed to win was Santos, and they just put a whooping on Saprissa yesterday. They did 6-1.
Saprissa's fallen down or something because 6-1. I remember back in the day back in my day when they were challenging Pumas.
They beat Pumas.
Yeah, they were owned by Vergara back then.
Yeah.
They didn't like the whole.
Or even the Costa Rican team.
They didn't like the Costa Rica only policy he put, and it's funny because they won. They won like back-to-back championships.
Yeah, and then Querétaro won just because the Panamanian siding with San Francisco that was in their group lost to the team from Belize called Verdes. So and that was the only reason they made it through.
So basically, the whole tournament is ending up, I assume, as they planned, all 4 Mexican teams and then all 4 MLS teams. So that's the whole purpose of this is MLS versus Mexico, and that's the only reason why I care about it.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, even then, now, what's going to happen is, I think most likely we're bound to see is the Mexican teams will face off against each other in the quarterfinals, and the MLS teams will do the same because CONCACAF is doing their very best to avoid having the knockout rounds be LigaMX teams and MLS teams because the chances of avoiding a Liga MX final, I guess it makes sense in that, in sort of the way that they have it structured, but it's kind of Mickey Mousey in a way.
Well, it is. Aren't they doing just like the 1 through 8 and wherever you fall, that's where you play? Or are they going to say no? Wait a second.
No. I'm pretty sure they're gonna do Liga MX first.
No, it is the 1 through 8 thing, kind of like how we do the Liga, where the 1 and the 8 and the 2 and the 7 and the 3 and the 6 and 5-4 they face each other.
Well, it worked out last year that way. MLS versus Mexico.
But honestly, we should just go back to. They should just go back to the way it was for the Champions Cup, where I mean it just lasted, basically, from February to May or whatever. I mean.
Or Ronnie, they could go back when it was held over the weekend.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas, dude.
Honestly, I'm actually a big fan of the CONCACAF Champions just because I think that it helps the other countries get better, and I think we've seen that. That certainly helped Panama. Yeah. It's helped some of the other countries.
But at whose expense?
Well, that's fine. Then Mexico needs to learn to get better too.
That's the one thing. The region grow.
That's the one thing I remember La Volpe saying is like, yeah, these countries have gotten better, but Mexico needs to get better too. I'm not saying that, but I think that's one thing that I think we're starting to see that the U.S. is going through, that Mexico went through maybe in the last couple of cycles, is that the U.S. thinks that they've got CONCACAF in the bag. So Jurgen's like, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Let's go play all these European friendlies because those are the teams we need to learn how to beat. And in so doing, they're kind of forgetting that the teams around here aren't that bad, and now they've lost 4 in a row to CONCACAF in the U.S.
They've lost the last 5 games against CONCACAF teams. They've won 1, and that was against Cuba. So, I guess you can say that other teams are getting better. I mean, I think there's no denying that. And just a quick look at least the national teams, I would say that Panama has been the one who's benefited the most. I think Panama is a team that has some very interesting things going on, but they still sort of suffer. They're very naive in a sense. I mean, you look a quick look at the Mexico-Panama game from last week. Fouls get called against them. They crowd the ref. They lose their concentration. But they're a team that's been tough, and even their club teams have been tough for the Mexican teams in the CONCACAF champions.
Yeah, so because of that, I think that this is one thing I think Mexico is finally starting to realize that we need to take care of business here first. Then let's go. We know we can play the other guys. We don't have to go prove ourselves. We can hang with any team in the world, and we've proven it.
But
what we have to do is we have to take care of stuff here first. And
right. But the thing is, Mexico still hasn't won a Copa Libertadores.
Wait, I want to go back to hang with any team in the world. Because then we go to the FIFA World Cup and our teams get eliminated by like some Korean team or some team from India.
Well, that hadn't happened. Oh, you mean the Club World Cup?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We always lose to some unknown team, dude.
Think about that. That always happens in Japan. How long is that flight? I mean...
Yeah, it's been going on since like
the
90s.
But the team usually goes before, like, with plenty of time to prepare.
Yeah. And almost always the teams that have gone in at least in the Club World Cup have been on such a bad streak that they've just been playing terrible. I mean, that's why it's no surprise if they lose. But
I would counter that it's more of a style of play issue, because I think that if you look at like Pachuca and Monterrey when they had those sort of stumbles. I think Pachuca was against. Help me out here. It was a team. It was the African champion
from Morocco.
Tepe Mazembe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
with that guy Kidiaba who was bouncing on the field after
Pachuca literally was camped out on their end of the field, knocking the ball around, looking for spaces to slip the through balls in, and then the counter, ball gets long ball over the top. Iram Mier goes over to sort of clean it up. The one forward that was up top, like, sort of muscles him off the ball, and it's plays like that. And then the rest of the game is whatever Mexican team is playing, sort of looking for a way in. And I think it's a style of play issue, because in LigaMX you see it a lot. I mean, the pace of the game is a little bit slower. It's more methodical teams, and they get used to that. And that might be enough to get you through the CONCACAF champions. But you run into the same issues even in Libertadores, where teams that sort of dominate possession or are pretty good at it are also burnt on counters, on set pieces, and then it's a struggle to get back into the game. But, I mean, it's a combination of factors, really.
Going back to the CONCACAF champions, I just want to mention that for me, personally, the reason I don't like that tournament is that they always structure it so that you end up with a LigaMX team versus MLS team, and then they try to play up that whole todos somos MLS or whatever slogan they use now.
Dude,
like last time,
I'm sorry.
What was it? Real Salt Lake versus I think it was
Monterrey.
The hashtag was, and if I'm not mistaken, you guys are welcome to correct me. I think it was MLS for RSL. Which is, those are epic levels of corniness that we don't even have time to get into.
It's garbage, man.
Anything to build up the game.
Sure, we don't have 5 minutes for that.
No, we shouldn't even expend any time on that, because we have some other things we can definitely talk about.
Hey, man, well, the thing is that they have way too many teams from both leagues, and personally speaking, I don't think MLS has done anything to deserve 4 teams in this.
Exactly. Having 8 groups. Man.
Actually, haven't they had like 5 or 6 in the past with the?
Well, they get 5 because of the Canadian team. So they really have 5 teams. Yeah.
Damn Canadians.
So they get more than LigaMX, which is
it's the same league.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So I mean that's why I think they need to cut that to like 2 or 3. I mean, I understand why the league is set up the way it is, because obviously, the more games, the more TV money, blah blah blah. I get that.
Yeah, but, Blazer, the 10%.
Yeah, Mr. Did you notice that in the Blazer Bowl, the winning trophy was about 10% version of the real CONCACAF Gold Cup?
The other
90%. I was noticing that today. But I mean, I personally like the tournament. I think that it's to me, anything for our region to be better, I'm all for it. I know that the way it's run is ridiculous, but I like the fact that Panama is not someone you need to deal with, and I think Honduras has gotten better, and that's and at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, a Mexican team's going to end up winning it.
Yeah, that's what I look forward to, is just beating an MLS team, even if Giovanni Dos Santos is on it.
Yeah.
So I hope that LA can actually go down.
Man, I think Giovanni's eating too many Tommy burgers. He kind of fell off.
That's better.
You know, I feel bad for that.
Is that why Belinda's been sending those like racy type photos to motivate him or something?
No, Gio's got some other girl now, man. He apparently he's moved on from. Come on, he's in LA, man. He's a rich young athlete. He's gonna have plenty of options.
He's so close.
Well, I mean, that's if Jolie will let him share. I guess that's how.
He still posts those Instagram pictures of him and his brother on all those flashy clothes and stuff.
Man, I got to tell you, Giovanni, to me, made just the biggest mistake in his career going to Tottenham at the period where he, it could have gone either way for him. And I'm not saying staying at Barcelona would have been an option, but I think, if he would have just gone to a team so he could just learn how to play and instead of doing nothing for 3 years.
Well, the coach had promised him playing time.
No, I don't disagree with you, but then the coach also lost his first 7 games and they got rid of him. It was a tough decision. It was a tough decision.
But had the coach stayed for a year or two?
No, I believe me, I agree, but
Didn't Guardiola also ask him to stay?
That's one of the things I don't understand, because there's been this sort of myth that's been perpetuated about Gio and the way he left Barcelona. Guardiola has gone on record saying he never asked him to leave, he wanted him to stay, and it was Gio who said, I think I need to move on. There was a bit of a thing there with Bojan.
You know what? A lot of it had to do with his dad.
Absolutely.
Because he wanted him to get promoted because Messi was already... And I got to see them training when they came. Is when they had just acquired some of the Juventus players. Thuram and... I can't remember the Sambrota. That acquired like 2 or 3.
Right after the World Cup.
And then they were doing a tour in the U.S. and Gio and Messi were like, they were training and they were gonna promote both of them, but then they ended up just giving Messi the playing time. When
Gio in his first and only actual season with the first team, where he played league games, he scored a hat trick, I think, in his last game before, against Murcia, I think it was.
Yeah.
But that season, he was getting minutes off the bench, and he was sort of a rotational player that was being asked to do somewhat what Messi was doing. And he got most of his minutes that he played were actually when Messi was injured. So I think John's onto something there. I think another year at Barcelona would have probably avoided him.
Going back, so it was him, and then they had Bojan had come up too. And
right.
There was this whole compete thing. But the dad was really pushing for Gio to be like he's the one that said like, you need to be starting, you need to be like one of the main guys, because they had offered to send him on loan. They're like, we'll send you on loan and you could come back, and he ended up going to Tottenham. I think his dad, and if you go back to hear when his dad would do some interviews, they were pretty. His dad would get heated up and talk. Talk shit.
Or if he would have stayed in Spain, maybe at least. But this is a good segue to the U17.
Excellent.
I want to comment on that.
I didn't get to watch the game today, but apparently they didn't do too well.
No, they did pretty bad in the second half. I mean, they created a lot of chances, but they kind of slacked off in the second.
Yeah, I took notes on this game.
So did I.
Put them all down.
Do tell.
No, what I noticed, the obvious difference from the Argentina game versus today's game was that they played a backline of 4 today. And Monday they played was it Monday or against Argentina? They played a backline of 3. So they looked a lot more comfortable against Argentina, and also the backline, the team was really, how do you say, stretched vertically. The space between the lines, it was I think there was too much space in the Monday game. The lines were more compressed, and so you had players switching lines, and so you had a lot more combination play, which is something that the Mexican youth teams, at least the last, you could say the last 3 or 4, they have not shown this ability to change lines, to hold possession. So I think that was the biggest difference, that the back line kept staying back, and they couldn't play a lot of combinations. They were playing long balls from the back to really weren't a threat on the counter. I don't understand. I guess the change of tactics was because they only used one forward. But there was no reason to play deep, because Monday's game. Oh, I'm just gonna mention about Monday's game. I think Mexico completely outclassed this Argentina U17. The Argentina U17, they were strong, they were physical, they were fast, but the majority of the 50-50 balls, the majority of challenges in the back, the Mexican zagueros, dude, they're just solid.
It
They
might have
weren't
been a
very
weak
organized,
game,
but they were, yeah.
Germany beat them 4-0 today too, so they're probably out.
Throughout the broadcast, Carlos Hermosillo said something, that we've all thought that, when you play against, when Mexico plays against the superpowers, they show up, but then when they play against teams that Mexico should beat,
they play down to them.
They play down to them, and I don't think that's the case, because the kids were playing, and they were at first, the first half especially, they were trying to create chances, but I've always thought that it's always been easier for Mexico to play against an Argentina, a Brazil, because they let you play, because they also like to play.
Exactly.
But they didn't. Argentina didn't. In the first half, Argentina stayed back to absorb pressure. In the second half, they came out pressing, and you saw a difference. And I just think they were too vertical, and they're not comfortable with a back line of 4. And you remember Potro with his U17 teams, he always said, "Hey, they don't like playing back line of 4. They prefer a back line of 3."
It was working for them in the first half, though. Lalo Aguirre, he was making some pretty good runs. Made an awesome shot to hit the post.
Yeah. That was one of the criticisms that Hermosillo, had, was that, why is the coach trying to invent the role that he had for him, because it seems like he had him further back, as to, he had him further front during the game against Argentina.
Oh, that was Lopez and Magaña.
Lopez, that's right. Lopez and
Lopez and Magaña. He switched their roles.
Yeah,
you're kidding.
He moved
That's
Lopez
terrible.
out wide for some reason. I mean, he's pretty decent. I mean, for my money, he's him and the 2 fullbacks for the this under-17 team have been the best players on the team, along with the goalie. I mean, the goalie today, Romero, had an outstanding save off a free kick. It's on. If you guys get a chance to see it, it's just absolutely top class.
It was Memo-like.
Oh, it's beautiful. I think to be fair, I think we need to give some credit to Australia, because Mexico, while not really obviously putting the chances away, they were better in the first half. Australia adjusted in the second half. In those first 15-20 minutes, Australia found spaces and they got in there, and they weren't dangerous in the final touch, but they were sort of pushing it in there, and they, Mexico couldn't find themselves. And yes, it's true, the team was very stretched out, and at points, all you saw were just clearances to Aguirre, who was the only guy up top against 3 defenders. I mean, that's never going to work. Australia. Just a quick point. I think Australia. I mean, Mexico. I mean, if we can get into like really vague comments about how Mexico plays up or down to the rival, but if anything, I think that Mexico has trouble with teams that are equally as comfortable in possession and have a physical advantage or can match them physically. And I think Australia did that in the second half. Australia was awfully comfortable in possession. They didn't really lose the ball a lot. And they found spaces, and they were physically challenging our players and winning those 50-50 challenges, or as I was talking about last week, those secondary balls. That's for you, Basic. I know you're listening, but at the end of the day,
secondary balls.
The secondary balls are essential. And I think that, for me, I think that whenever I watch a Mexican team play, most notably the national teams, you can always get a sense of the game by how we're doing when it comes to recovering those secondary balls. And we did it against Argentina. Not only, and sometimes it's like the ball fall, it just so happens to bounce your way or whatever, or the spacing of the midfield helps in that sense. But against Argentina, we were physically challenging for those balls and winning them. And And I think a big part of that is the fullbacks. Those two guys, Ulises Torres and I think the other kid, I forget his name, those guys are not easily beaten 1v1. They were not by Argentina and they were not by Australia. That's a strength in this team. And I think for my money, this team collectively is better than the last two teams. And those two teams made it to the final. Well, that said, I don't know if this team is going to make it to the final in this tournament.
You know what? Those two teams they were organized. They were organized much better in the back, and I was remembering the even Chucho's U17 who were basically they were all defenses except the 3-4 guys up top, Gio, Vela,
Villaluz.
The Cruz Azul guy that Villaluz.
Villaluz, yeah.
And then so I think individually. These guys just do things that the other teams they weren't able to do. You know, their playing style, their possession style. But I think in the back they're not as would have been. You know, that would piss off Tuca. You know, Tuca Ferretti would be frustrated with these guys.
Well, one of the two center backs is going to make way for Cesar Montes from Monterrey for the next Under-20 World Cup. One of them is, I believe, is from Pachuca. The other guy, Cervantes and Esquivel. Actually, I think they're both from Pachuca. They're both the center backs.
Hey boys, I'm going to hop in here.
Cervantes is the center mid that pairs up with Pablo Lopez. Esquivel and Venegas are the two center backs, I believe, and I think they're both from. Pretty sure they're both from Pachuca. I find them very interesting. I think they're very interesting players. They are very well rounded, but that's at this level. I think that obviously we've seen this before with Mexico with the under-17s. That next step to the under-20s is a lot tougher for our teams at the World Cups. So I do think one of those two guys, if not both of them, will end up making way for Montes, and maybe someone else will pop out of nowhere. It's a weird age. There's a lot of players that didn't make the cut that could surpass some of the other players. I like the team as a whole. I mean, if I had to guess, I think we could say that they're going to lose against Germany. Germany seems to be the class of this group, and obviously one of the best teams in the tournament. But I mean, 4 points can get us to the next round, and then it's the knockout stages. Then
Mexico's already in the next round. They've made the next round. They're in, because even if they lose to Germany, they'll be one of the best third place teams if it turns out.
But you know, I was checking the
play Nigeria though.
Well, I saw something in the tournament. They have a fair play point.
I can't hear, dude.
Damn, sounds like Kanye.
It sounds like.
Sorry.
Hey guys, just give me a
Cappy.
second. I just need to say my phone's about to die, so I'm gonna hop off. But it's been great talking to y'all, and let's do it again soon.
Likewise, John.
Thanks.
Hey, John.
Late.
Hey, you guys were mentioning the best third places. They have the fair play points, so I think that's the first time that I've noticed that. So I don't know if they've done it if they did it for the U20, but if you have your yellow cards and your red cards, that could be a tiebreaker for the third place.
We had 2 yellow cards today.
And I think the yellows
a couple
are pointing.
against the Argentines too. So well, I don't know. We're going to be winning the fair play award.
And so each yellow is like a point each. And well, I was gonna mention to you guys. I know you guys probably won't care for this too much, but the Mexico goalie, he's from LA. He plays for the LA Galaxy Academy.
That's right.
And, Get him out of there. Get him out of there. I don't like him anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He was on the U.S. team.
Is that the one? Is that the one that? Yeah, is that the one that recently said that he played for the U.S. but then he left because he didn't like the way he was being treated by some of the players and coaches?
It was very similar to what happened with Omar Salgado when he was at Chivas, where he ended up saying that he didn't feel comfortable because the players used to call him gringo or pocho or something like that. In between the lines with Romero, there was talk about him, playing banda music, and some of his teammates were just like, well, what are you doing? Like, what is this? He didn't feel very comfortable.
I would have been the same, dude.
Well, and some of the U.S. fans have said, well, it's kind of weird because the team does have quite a few Mexican Americans and/or Hispanic players. It's weird that he would say that. Again, I don't know. I mean, it's just who knows what really happened. But I'm glad that we have him because I think he's a very good prospect as a goalkeeper. So.
And he's already 6'3" or over. He's already over 6'3".
Are you thinking of Jesse Gonzalez or Romero?
No, or Romero.
No, I didn't know.
He's
I didn't know how tall he was.
All right, boys. Let's the last question, or the last thought for the U17, and it's a question that people have been asking: is Mexico a world power at the U17 level?
Yes.
In general, or this team?
Or just in general? In general.
I don't think they're
performance-wise, yes.
Maybe the U17 level, but there's a fall off between the U17 level and the U20 level.
Right. But right now we're talking about U17 because a lot of reports, from the international press and also, a lot of the commentators are saying, Mexico being their favorite to win this. Do you still see them as a favorite?
I think they're a contender. I think I don't know if they're the favorite.
I think I'm gonna hold my thought on that until I see them play against
Germany.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would be a good.
Well, I'm not sure how much that will tell us. I think if you look at the results of the program as a whole at the under-17 level, the two finals. The last two tournaments we made it to the final. We won one of them, yes, at home. So I guess you could say at the World Cup tournament itself, recently you could say Mexico is a favorite in that sense. At this tournament, I don't think they're favorites. I think contenders is an excellent way of putting it.
Contender. Okay. Well,
overall, the international press does respect the U17 program.
All right. Let's change subjects to Osorio. He said this week, talking about about the complacency of the Mexican coaches staying in Mexico and not basically searching other pastures. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's something comparable to what happens to the youth players where. Maybe in Mexico they start making some dough and they start partying with some of the, they get called up to the first team. They play a couple games. They make some buddies on the first team and they're partying every Friday, Thursday night or Saturday night instead of focusing on their diet, their nutrition, and their training.
Yeah, and we were talking about this on the Twitter.
Yeah.
So
I have a serious problem, with what Osorio says about that, about Mexican coaches or even the players or even the suits, who go off to Europe and take these courses, stuff like that. But I have a serious problem when they say that a Mexican player or a Mexican coach, they lack ambition or they're just mediocre because they don't want to leave Mexico because they're comfortable in Mexico. Let's be really honest.
I think there's some
there's some truth to it.
Well, let me put it to you this way. And let's go back 20 years ago. Let's go back 30 years ago, and even 15 years ago. For La Volpe, Argentina, World Cup champion, goes to Mexico. From a football that's better than Mexican football. Why did he go to Mexico?
Money.
The answer he was getting paid 3 times more. According to him, he was getting paid 3 times more.
And
so when you're talking about player or coaches or players, from like Carlos Milok from Uruguay, Velibor Bora, from Yugoslavia at the time when they had when they had a strong football program in Central Europe, going to Mexico. because Mexico would pay, back in the day, before, all these international tournaments, Mexico would pay for the pentagonales and all those type of tournaments. They would bring in, top teams from Europe and stuff like that. You had players that came, loved Mexico, loved the stadiums, and say, hey, I want to stay over here. So my point is, you have all these players and coaches from footballing nations like Brazil, like Uruguay, from Argentina, who go to Mexico, and they stay in Mexico. Well, I mean, wouldn't that be more mediocre because you're going to a lesser football? I mean, let's be honest. The reason they're going to Mexico is because they're getting paid more. So why demonize the Mexican coach who is there for the same reason that you are? Money.
Yeah, well, he's going there for money too. So let's
put it into context, because Osorio was asked about what Tomas Boy originally said. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he answered. I don't think he should have answered, and I think his answer was rather vague and sort of very. It was cliche. I mean, what you got to look at is, does a Mexican coach learn, or will they improve by leaving and going to coach in Peru, in Colombia, other than Brazil and Argentina? I don't think there's much of an improvement that can be made for a coach coming from Mexico, unless they go to Europe, like Aguirre did, for example, or some of, like Ambriz, for example. So in that sense, I don't understand what exactly he's getting at. Because he uses his example, like himself as an example, as a Colombian coach. The Colombian league is very good within the spectrum of South American leagues, and they do a much better job at exporting players than, I guess you could say, Mexico does, because they have some very raw, very good talent, and it's a market that's been exploited recently. As far as the players go, again, what does a player gain? What does a player gain by leaving Cruz Azul, for example, and going to play in Peru, or going to play in Bolivia? Again, if you're not going to, either Brazil, Argentina as a player, or maybe one of the top teams in Colombia, what do you really gain? So it's a bit of a conundrum there. There's not a lot of options unless players go to Europe, and we already know the Mexican market is inflated. We already see that. Herrera was sold for, what, $10 million? Is he worth $10 million when he left Mexico? I don't think so. I don't think he was worth that kind of money. I mean, it's great that they paid it, but, $6 million, $5, $6, $6.5, I think it would have been a more fair price. I don't know if $10 million. It's one of the biggest gripes that Porto fans have with Herrera is the fact that the team paid so much money for him when they don't think he was worth that kind of money. I think his performances last year, the entire year last year, warranted that kind of money. But again, going back to what Osorio said, it seems kind of nonsensical to get it. It almost like, why would you want to get into that? I understand he's giving his opinion, but don't make enemies. You don't need to be making enemies, and people will take that as some sort of slight. I don't understand what he was trying to do with those comments. I really don't.
I understand the context, meaning, because of, the couple of, the comments that were being made against him from Vucetich and Boy and stuff. But my point is, a lot of people drink the Kool-Aid and start believing that, oh, Jesus, these Mexican coaches, they have to start going to Europe. They have to start going to abroad so they can start learning. There's something that Hugo Sanchez said, a long time ago when he went to Spain. The very first, when he got off the plane in Madrid, and he was given, and they were asking him the questions, about, hey, how does it feel, to be coming over here? He basically was giving the cliched answers like, hey, I hope that I can come here and learn and stuff like that. And then a Mexican or a Spanish newspaper. Our newsman basically pulled him to the side and says, Hugo, you didn't come here to learn, you came here to produce. And that always stuck with Hugo, and he said it many times on air about that incident. But the thing is, if a Vucetich or a La Puente or a La Volpe or coaches that basically started in Mexico, or any Mexican coach. I know those guys aren't, like La Volpe is a Mexican, but if coaches like Vucetich, if they go to Europe, they're not going to go there to learn. They're going to go out there to produce. You know, so it's
No,
like
you're right. I think, well, yeah, Osorio was trying to, he's a very humble guy. So when he says he came here to learn, it's sort of a double entendre in the sense that he's saying, and I'm sorry I cut you off real quick, but he's sort of saying, yes, I'm here obviously to produce, but I'm also here to learn. And I'm open to, and when they say learn, it's like I'm open to suggestions. I'm not just going to come here and impose myself. I think that's where that comes from a little bit. But go on, I'm sorry.
You know what? Going into the whole learning, how much can we say Aguirre was better as national team coach in 02 compared to 2010? Because I prefer old Aguirre.
well, it's funny. It's funny you say that. Funny you say that because this is Aguirre, a Mexican coach who was abroad for 10 years, and when he came back, he didn't even know his own league. He had to use Carrillo as basically as a go-between, and like Carrillo was trying to have Guillermo Castro back onto the squad. He also tried to convince to have what's his name. He wanted Ochoa to be the starting goalkeeper. So I mean, even in 10 years that he was away, he didn't even know the league. So that in a way, if you don't know the league, even for a Mexican coach, that's one strike against you.
Didn't they put Conejo in and take out Guardado? So they messed up bad, just like they did in 02.
I feel that's a little revisionist because I think that Guardado wasn't playing that well, and he lost his spot to Efrain Juarez, that was probably his best moment with the national team. And let's be fair, I think it was the World Cup. Maybe not the World Cup itself, but the lead up to the World Cup, there was enough there where you could say, it's not a bad decision. But then Guardado comes in when he played as a sub, and he was excellent. So, I mean, I guess in hindsight we can say, hey, you should have played this guy. I think I'm one of the few people that thinks that having Conejo start was not a bad idea. I'm just going to leave it at that so we don't get sidetracked.
And didn't Memo Ochoa, he had several brain farts in the lead up to the World Cup to the point where, like, hey, can I trust this guy or not?
North Korea, the game against North Korea at Territorio Morelos, Santos, whatever, Territorio Santos, the guy, long-range shot, yeah.
I'm gonna
he got shaky there.
I'm gonna eat crow on this because I criticized La Volpe when he did it. I remember during the 2006 qualifying campaign, he made a comment that at the time I didn't agree with, was that no matter what, Osvaldo is going to be my keeper, and I criticized that. It's like, hey, it was like, why the hell? I mean, don't you want competition?
Yes, I remember you criticized La Volpe.
No, but in hindsight, I think that was a smart move to do because that was going to be your keeper. Now, I mean, like after that, it's like the press makes it a damn soap opera as to who's going to be the keeper, and they criticize one little move or something, and
that's
I'm
why
like,
La Volpe is a genius.
Come on.
Hey, but
all right.
The press is always gonna criticize, like no matter whether you breathe or you don't breathe. They're like, hey, why did he die? What the hell's wrong with him?
What I'm saying is the press didn't really criticize La Volpe for that, but I remember I did, and in hindsight I think it was a smart thing to do that. Hey, that's gonna be your keeper. That's gonna be your as Aguirre said, él va a ser mi gallo. I mean, he's gonna be my
And now where's La Volpe? He's like begging to get back into the game. He's blaming Vergara for not letting him get the chance and criticizing, well, not criticizing, but saying Osorio isn't really the solution. He's just fiending to get back into the national team.
Well, that's the thing. Like pretty much every coach in LigaMX has been like, well, I don't think he's the right choice. They wanted a coach from the league. It's like, who in the league was actually worthy of being the national team coach? There's like 3 guys.
Apparently, everyone thinks La Volpe is the guy.
No, but I'm saying, okay, great.
La Volpe definitely.
But he's not. But Osorio is not. Also, I mean, people. I mean, I was reading, that they're making him out to be some sort of like intellect. That guy, what? He graduated with a PE degree, physical education degree. Come on, don't make him out to be some intellect.
It's not that he's an intellect. He
I
comes
have,
across.
I have a notepad too. I could take a picture of it, send it to you guys.
I think he
Takes little
speaks.
Doug.
I've listened to some of his press conference. He speaks. He's very humble. He's very eloquent. But I think what matters is some of it is his credentials. He's got a UEFA A license, which I think it's no joke. I mean, when you got guys like Ugo,
it's
who
not.
spend all these.
Hey, when was the last
Hold on,
time?
let me finish. He goes gets his license in Honduras, and even the
So
process.
trash.
Hey,
The-
there are
Nicaragua.
there are a couple Mexicans that have that license.
The Honduras
I
license.
You check, you'll find them.
Mario Trejo has it. I think. But here's the thing: like
Ambris.
people talk about a Mexican coach.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
But look, what I was gonna say is, I mean, the UEFA license is it's a very intense process, much more than even the Mexican Director Técnico course, which is pretty much anybody can take. By the way, if you guys have any free time, I can live in Mexico City for a year, and I think that matters. Dude, I lost my train of thought now with your message. Yeah, fight for your right.
Honestly, you know what? Look, I'm not knocking the UEFA license, just like I'm not knocking the FMF license. But I don't think people the reaction that people are having, and even people that normally are calm, like people like like Sage and people like even other reporters that tend to be more mellow, speaking out about this. I think that's just a natural reaction because, I mean, who is this guy?
Is this the best gig he's got? Is this the most money he's making?
This is his biggest job.
So he doesn't need to come in here all like prepotente and thinking he's I'm from Europe. I came from Europe. I studied in Europe, and I'm
if it was me though, if it was me, I would.
But
Just walking like you own the place, I
mean, when was the last time Kevin Keegan was relevant? I mean,
2000, 2009, 2000, whenever last time he coached. No, never.
You have to think about it. It's been a while.
Hey guys,
how
many Mexican coaches have choked at the World Cup? That's what I want to know. That to me, that's what
all
matters.
Of them. That's exactly the point. I mean, people talk about that the job should have went to a Mexican coach. We handed Chepo literally an entire cycle. A Mexican coach, a well-prepared Mexican coach, a cycle that crashed and burned and took out like 3 other Mexican coaches with it.
Yes. And
okay,
then you get
now, but here's the interesting part, because when Osorio was questioned about this, he said, we had a similar thing in Colombia. And it's true. Colombia had a similar thing. They went through any promising coach that was a Colombian national, put him in charge, and then they crashed and burned. Bolillo Gomez was thrown out because he supposedly hit a woman.
You guys are talking about choking though, and just before you finish, I don't think Mejia Barón really choked. They went all the way to penalties. I don't think La Puente choked. I mean,
right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's. I don't think it's choking per se.
I mean,
circumstances.
They messed up big time.
Aguirre choked. We can agree on that.
I'll say against the U.S., but I wouldn't say.
Yeah, he definitely did. No, I agree.
Mejia Barón choked, dude. Mejia Barón choked. There's no way you got.
In '94, you could always make an argument for that. Yeah.
I think Mejia Barón did choke. La Puente, you could say he didn't. It was this Lara's brain farts or whatever, but at the end of the day, they didn't deliver, right?
Totally.
Mira, nomás we just nationalize him, and he's good. We just give him the citizenship.
Ronnie one time in Twitter, he brought up that the Mexican press, they hate the Mexican player, and they hate the Mexican player that later on gets a position that's much more respected than the one they have, which is either a TV commentator or director técnico, right? Because those are kind of prestigious jobs. And
that's the progression for the players. There's really nowhere else for them to go. I just want to say that Osorio, I think there is a parallel to Colombia here that we should look at, because just quickly, Colombia went through the same thing, and it wasn't until he turned to Peckerman that they found sort of an outside perspective that was able to sort of maximize. I think it's also circumstantial, because Colombia sort of had this wave of talent that was coming up
hey, dude,
from 2011.
Maximize crap, man. He
I agree. I don't think, but you remember that in Colombia, after not going to the World Cup since '98, this is a guy that took them to the quarterfinals. And we can talk about the matchups that they had, and yes,
players coming through.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of circumstantial, you know. But you could say the same about Mexico. Mexico has a good group of players right now that is coming up, and maybe these players need an outside perspective that could guide them towards something that we haven't done before, or whatever it is the press is sort of clamoring for. And I will say this very quickly, and I'll finish what I'm saying. I don't think that Sage is. I think he's one of the more level-headed dudes on the media, but watching him lose his mind the other day again with Paco Gabriel de Anda, he wants to hold on to the idea that the teams that he was a part of were the best teams, and I mean I don't think he's wrong about that, but I feel like player wise, there are a couple of players from that era that I would totally take over for this team now. But I think that overall there's a bit more talent right now than there was back then. Overall.
Hey, let me finish my point about the players. So where I was mentioning the players, their background is they come from from the very poor backgrounds. They have a lack of education, right? And then suddenly they're thrust into the position which requires the ability to think outside the box and in Mexican football, if you notice, if you talk to anybody, they're like, hey, dude. El fútbol es igual aquí en China. I'm sure you guys heard that expression from the players, from coaches.
Yeah,
they have a tendency.
Round,
Yeah, so they have a tendency to think inside the box. So I think if they're willing to, hey, why don't I spend a year in getting the UEFA? Why don't I, travel to, take a shot at Brazil, at different leagues, see how they do things? I don't think that would hurt. I don't think that hurt your background as a coach.
Well, I mean, some of you guys already know me. I have nothing against traveling and working abroad. I mean, obviously, my family's been doing it for 20 plus years now. So I mean, and I've been fortunate to go visit them many times and stuff like this. So I mean, I understand the value of traveling. I understand the value of learning different cultures. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about the game that's so global now, you don't really have to go you don't have to go sell yourself short in some hellhole or some team that doesn't aspire for anything just for the sake of, well, I want abroad. I mean, those coaches that, like I said before, that basically are coming from countries that historically have better football programs, soccer programs, going to Mexico. They came to Mexico for one reason and one reason only: money. So don't knock the Mexican coaches and the Mexican players who want to stay in Mexico because they can live comfortable. I mean, I think Joely and I were talking about this a couple days ago. Spain won the World Cup with 20 out of the 23 players playing domestically. Italy won with all 23 players playing in the Italian league. The vast majority of the Germans playing in Germany. So, when they bring up those cases of having to go abroad, is it really that much of a stretch for an Englishman to go play in Spain or an Italian to go play in Germany? Now?
Well, there's many factors.
For the English, maybe.
I think those leagues have different goals. Like the Bundesliga, it's mostly each club is community owned, so they have lower ticket prices. They focus on youth a lot more. They don't have caps on foreigners, the last I checked, but I think it's different. There's different objectives of the league.
What I'm saying is what I'm trying to point out is that because of the European community and stuff like that, it's not a culture shock. I mean, sure, the language and stuff like that, but I said it's not that much of a culture shock anymore for an Englishman. You're going from a Bayern Munich and going to a Chelsea, or going from a Barcelona to a Chelsea.
Englishmen don't travel well, dude.
Well, true. I mean, but they're English. I mean, yeah, but you get my point. You get my point. Like, does a Fabregas really have to leave Barcelona to go to Arsenal to
He did.
learn?
He didn't fit in.
I mean,
He came back
could,
better when he came back.
That's. But I'm saying it's like Nino Torres. He went to Atletico, then he went to Liverpool, and then he went to Chelsea, then he's back at Atletico.
Yeah.
Hey, he's only in retirement, so why not?
But I think, as a coach, like, for example, was the Spanish league, at least did Pep Guardiola grow as a coach because he had these games against Mourinho every year? He had twice as many when they're in the same league. I think as a coach, you want to match your wits against the best, and the best directors técnicos are definitely in Europe. There's no question. The best players are there, and
I'm going to read something out to you from a book from Ángel Capa, the Argentine coach, right? It's from his book El Fútbol Donde Está, and he's basically he's in a conversation with Pep Guardiola. This book was written in 2004, 2005.
Hey, don't forget your monocle, okay?
Okay. He basically said, this is Ángel Capa. He says, mira, estando en México tuve una disputa con algunos periodistas porque hablaban de la necesidad de trabajar más físicamente con pesas y cosas ahí al jugador mexicano para asemblar a un alemán al que ponían de ejemplo. El jugador mexicano es muy resistente por naturaleza y juega a 3,000 metros de altura con 3 grados bajo cero y al otro domingo a nivel del mar al mediodía con 40 grados. La pregunta mía era, ¿por qué tratar de modificarlos físicamente? Si un alemán lo haces jugar en el DF con 40 grados al mediodía, seguramente rendirá mucho menos físicamente. Sí me decían, pero si un jugador mexicano tiene que chocar con un alemán, perderá seguro. Entonces yo les preguntaba, ¿por qué tenían que chocar con un alemán? Pep Guardiola, pues claro, no hay necesidad de chocar, Ángel. Y les ponía el ejemplo de Arellano que no sé si te acordarás. Pep Guardiola, en el último mundial se refiere al de Francia. Sí, me acuerdo de un delgado hábil. Eso es que entraba en los segundos tiempos y les gambeteaba a todos. Bueno, ¿para qué quería chocar a Arellano? Al contrario, tenía que evitar el choque. Lo que pasa es que hay un concepto del fútbol físico y el fútbol directo, y si no hay engaño, hay choque. The point is that even, Pep Guardiola, believe it or not, is a friend of Mexican football. He thinks really highly of it, and so does Ángel Capa. So, even then, it's like, why don't we do what we're able to do and what we're good to do? The Mexicans.
You know what, Rodney? I think it's been instilled in us because
it's like
we hear this from the media and they fill our heads with this need, and we could use a good example of Menotti came in. He only coached for 1 year the national team, but you still hear today, you could still Google it, where Ibarra, which was the president, he was FMF president, he was the Atlas president, and he said how Menotti revolutionized Mexican soccer. He was only there for 1 year, dude. He didn't really do anything. But that's it's still like people will still believe that. And a lot of the work that from the one team they went on to do really good, it was under Mejia Barón, just from '93 going on up to like.
Funny you say that because Hermosillo actually made a comment during the transmission Argentina-Mexico game. He made a comment with his personal experiences that, hey, Menotti taught me how to line myself to do this and how to play this and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't deny that Menotti did teach the players a lot, but I also don't drink the Kool-Aid to saying that he revolutionized Mexican football. I'll give you a prime example. Hugo Sanchez made a comment. I remember a long time ago. He made a comment that one of the criticisms towards him was that when he would come back, they would tell him, hey, take it down a notch. You need to play to their level, and he would say, why don't they come to my level? So there was other people before Menotti that were trying to improve the game. So I just think that the whole, hey, he revolutionized Mexican soccer, I think that's more I think that's more TV Azteca's talking points because they brought him in.
Yeah, same with Bielsa. We hear a lot good about Bielsa, but that Atlas team he left, they still haven't won anything.
That Bielsa, he's overrated trash, man. Like,
Your mic, bro.
His mic is so bad.
Yeah.
What about Sven Goran, man? Sven Goran revolutionized Mexican soccer.
What's that?
Sven Goran Eriksson. That guy revolutionized some.
In the table aspect.
Was his comment made to Hugo after he was in Spain for a few years or before he left?
Repeat that again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That quote to Hugo, was it said to him after he had been in Spain a few years or before he left?
Well, obviously he said this when he was a player, but I heard him say this after the fact when he was already retired.
I can understand why people say, oh, well, Europe is the best place to play soccer. All Mexicans should go over there, emigrate to show really what you got. Rafa Marquez definitely advocated for it. Hugo Sanchez himself said it. And I can see why, because they seen Hugo Sanchez winning trophies in with Real Madrid, and of course you're gonna grow up idolizing that.
Now, but here, it's a good thing that you bring that up, Fer, because it's one thing to go to Barcelona, it's one thing to go to Real Madrid, and I'm all for that. I think that if a Mexican's going to leave, they should go to a big club. But I don't think that we should be sending players to. No offense, but Porto. Although I know that they won the Champions League, a couple of years back with the great one. But just Porto, and it's like, come on, man, just come back to Mexico.
Porto's okay, dude. They got a good connection with Jorge Mendes. So that guy, he has a history of transferring players for big money. So I agree with you with the spirit of what you're saying, which is basically if you're gonna leave, you should go well paid. So that team has something vested in you to see you successful. Like there's some big players they left for very cheap and they ended up coming back and they looked a lot worse, or they went to bad situations like Juarez, Barrera, Ulises Davila. Is he still alive? Does anybody know?
He's playing in European welfare. Cal's second division.
I think players like that they should, maybe they really should assess, because Chelsea doesn't have a history of promoting youth players, and they're just casting a wide net to see which one turns out good enough for their first team.
What?
Like the guys that have gone to Netherlands, they've been more success. They've had better careers. And I think the Porto guys, they're gonna do all right too.
You know what? I think Ronnie had mentioned this. He had said it about how if the coach requests you, then that's a good bet, and that's what happened with Guardado in PSV. The coach really wanted him to play there. Same with Chicharo in Leverkusen. The coach really wanted him to be in the team, and you could see how he had like a bad league game, but then he still starts at the Champions League,
which was a really good gamble.
Anywhere else they would have probably benched them after that one bad game.
Like Manchester with what's his name? That guy.
Bengal. Yeah.
You're talking about Real Sociedad, no?
I think going to Europe. I think the whole going to Europe as a player is a little bit for one's personal career. They get to improve themselves by playing with the best. They get to meet the best. They get to shake Ronaldo's hand or some EPL guy's hand and trade jersey. Keep that, take it home, put it on their wall and stuff.
You're thinking like a century, dude. You're poisoning the well here, man.
Are there centuries in Europe?
I think the Mexican national team, the way it's gonna be better, like progress forward, is if the league improves, and if the youth players they stay hungry to break into the first team. And so, I agree with you guys. Not all of them should leave, but the ones that leave, they better, there should be a big money behind them. That's pushing them forward, and like Jolie said, the coach wants them.
Hey, I want to expand on a question that somebody, well, I think it was Ronnie, said earlier about how the Mexico is not considered like the world superpower in the under-17 class. I want to know you guys' thoughts on why has Mexico gotten to that level?
Partidos moleros.
It's true. It's true.
It's true. You know, the Mexican media, they vilify and they demonize money. My point, I guess the way I look at it is, since I can remember, you know, Mexican teams used to do the off season in places like, you know, Cuernavaca. They used to do it in Iztapan de la Sal. They used to do it in obviously the resort towns. When they started doing them in the United States, you know, the criticism was in shopping, but they were getting paid. They were making a lot of money. They were making a lot of money. You're obviously seeing you're obviously seeing, you know, the money being used for the U17, the U20, the U15, you know, tournaments. So, I mean, what's the problem? I mean, that's why you're seeing a lot of the success from the youth is because the money that Mexico's been generating and investing in the infrastructure.
That's why I will pay $150 per ticket every time they come play in Phoenix.
Yeah,
against Panama.
Well, I think just adding to that overall
It's like Mexican World Mission, you know? $1 out of my $150 will reach some kid that's trying to play soccer.
No, I just want to add to that. I think Mexico at the youth level, they're more organized and they play more than the other national teams. So I would say on average, the Mexico's youth teams will play together. You know, more campos de concentración, más giras, so they come more prepared. I think that's been one of the things. Not really.
But it you know, the money and the infrastructure is one thing, and honestly, I don't think that's the only thing, because I mean, truth be told, the U.S. actually is a lot more organized and has a lot more money when it comes to youth. I mean, I think
their talent's so low, though.
It's just like a master.
Exactly.
They don't have that. You know,
and that's my point, and that's what the point that I was about to reach is that, you know, organized one, you know, is just a little. It has helped our, you know, Mexico develop, like I said, its infrastructure, but also the exposure that the kids are getting to different styles of playing. I think that's what's really benefited, you know, the youth squads from the 15 all the way to the 7, you know, to the 20s.
So well that they, you know, we got a women's league now, right? Even though it's like what, 4 or 5 teams.
Come on, it's women's football. Come on. It doesn't matter.
Women's rights in Mexico, and we don't want to deviate into all this, and this is Pern's topic too, but women's rights in Mexico hasn't, you know, isn't the same as in the United States. That's why the United States is so dominant in the women's soccer. But that's
they're dominant in women's soccer because of Title IX. I mean, the collegiate soccer. I mean, that's why they're fucking really good. But honestly, we don't talk about women's soccer here. So, all right, I'll leave you with one last thought on Osorio and, you know, the need to go to, you know, to Europe and stuff like that. I'll leave you with a quote from Pirata Fuentes, the great Veracruz player. When he went to Europe, he tried out for a couple teams, one of them being Barcelona. When he came back, they asked him why he didn't stay, and he says, "La hacha se iba a pudrir." So, meaning that the produce was going to, you know, was going to go to waste over there. So he came back. I always thought that was funny.
all right.
Oh,
so
wait, let me get that.
I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Maybe in the next intro or the next podcast, you guys can explain what a Cachirule is.
There you go.
All right.
We need to bring the rucos for that.
Tune in next time.
All right, but also next podcast, we really do need to work on our intro. I want that something like that, Prestige Worldwide. Dun, 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 dun.
Alright, dudes.
That'll be
All right,
awesome.
guys. Good show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
It was
For those
fun.
listening, follow us on Twitter at Los Cachirules.
Shout out to
And
Big
Soccer
Soccer.
Chronicle. Yeah, Big Soccer Dudes. See you guys later.
Yeah.
3 viewers we have on here. Visit
That's-
soccerchronicle.com.
It's
where
actually
all the
4, man.
information
Don't
is.
disrespect.
What?
It was 4 of them. Don't disrespect, man.
Yeah, 4. 4, 3.
Nah, it's 3. You just scared one away.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. Good night, man.
All right, later.
Good stuff. Later, guys.
Late.